and gentlemen, welcome to Podcastjuice. My name is Michael Dean, and this is the podcast on Prince. And yeah, we are back. We're here with a very special episode. We're going to do a year in review, Prince 2018. Well, there's a lot of things that happened this year. A lot of buzz and excitement, some good stuff, some maybe not so good stuff, I don't know. But joining me today, I got a nice special roundhouse of family, guests, and just community superstars out here. So first of all, let me welcome the home team. Ladies first, Kinesis of Muse to the Pharaoh, how are you?
Doing okay. Finally not raining in Atlanta, so we're happy to have a sunny day.
Oh, right on. Okay. And also joining us is Mr. Big Sexy and Saxer. How are you?
I am doing well. It is also not raining today in Northern California. But I prefer the rain today, actually. But hey, can't get it all the time.
All right. And also joining us, we have a special guest. He's been on the show before. Now, you will know him as Prince's friend on YouTube. So we're going to welcome him here to the podcast. Prince's friend, how are you?
I'm doing wonderful. And it is also not raining here. It hasn't rained here for like a couple of weeks, though. So, it wasn't really expected.
All right. Well, this is the rain report.
I think that's what this is.
Oh, man. Well, thank you for coming on and taking time out from everything you got going on. Definitely. And, yeah, we're just here to talk about, this past year in Prince, whether it's, stuff that was released, news stories, community stuff that happened, whatever it was. There was a lot that went down. But I want to start off just kind of going around the room, and let's just, start by going by some of the things that stood out to us or memorable moments, things that happened or, say, hey, I really love this. And I'm just going to start. One thing that I throw out here is relatively new. That's why I'm going to pick the easy one, but I was really happy with it, was the release of Piano on a Microphone, 1983. I personally enjoyed that release. I loved being able to buy I think I got the special edition one with the vinyl and the CD and the booklet and everything. And it was one of those types of recordings that I love the sort of unreleased rehearsal type shit. So I was very much happy with that. I know some people have issues, of course, but that was a big standout among many others that I would say for myself. I'm just curious, what do you guys think of that release? And the other question is, do you guys still listen to it? So I'll start with Kinesis.
Yeah, I definitely still listen to it because I'm all about Prince on piano at any time. One thing that I kind of did over the last week or so actually was kind of noticing people said that they wish they had it and stuff. And it's not expensive. I think it's maybe $30 or something now, even the deluxe. So just buy a couple and handing them out, because for those of us, who might have had or whatever, it's more about getting him exposed to other people. So I'm definitely big about, hey, you should try it and listen to this, or handing it out and different things like that, because it's interesting to hear him working through that creative process and helps you appreciate him more.
All right. Big Sexy.
For me, it's really more about watching other musicians celebrate him still. I mean, I'm not trying to downplay anyone's, heart at all, but in the immediate period of his passing, a lot of various musicians would do things at their shows. And the cool thing is, to me, is when you see so many musicians in so many different realms saying, let me stop the train here because this was my guy. Just recently, I had a chance to see guitar great Jeff Beck, and in his band currently is Rhonda Smith, who used to play with Prince, as we all know, and they did a version of Purple Rain. Now, instrumentally, it was off the chains. It was fantastic. My only beef is his choice of singers, but that's just one of those things. It's all subjective. But I just like seeing how musicians, both legendary and some of the newer cats, are still saying, don't forget this guy, because he did this all first. He was truly a modern day Mozart, and I like that people are still talking about it.
All right, man. That's why I love Big Sexy. He'll be on some Infinity Ring, Time Stone, answering questions we haven't asked yet. But that was dope. but just want to go back and cycle back to piano microphone and get your thoughts on that as well.
I enjoyed it because I am an aspiring piano player, and there's so many times where I get frustrated, and I'll just pop something in. And now that I'm starting to learn how it's structured, I can hear it. I can read music with it, and I can see what he's doing. But again, I am learning to crawl, and he was out there running marathons. And so I like listening to that. I was hoping, in fact, it's weird you would bring this up. I would like to see video of that tour, because a lot of people will say, well, all this studio gimmickry and blah, blah, blah about anyone nowadays. Prince had a giant catalog, said, let me do this. Give me my piano and a mic, and let me do my thing. That's amazing. That's amazing. That is something that needs to be shown and made widely available because it was truly a great experience. I'm glad I got to go. But now that I'm playing, I want to see it more just to watch the craftsmanship of it. I mean, it's something that needs to be talked about more, definitely.
All right. Now, do you want me to call you Prince's friend, or you want me to call you Eloy? What do you want me?
Prince's friend usually, or you can just say friend or whatever. I don't throw my actual name out there a ton.
Oh, my bad. Putting you down.
It's all good. I mean, y'all know me.
Bill collectors be listening to the show too, boy. They be like, oh, no, I'm sorry. It's Prince's friend.
All good. You can call me whatever you want.
No, it's Prince's friend. Jump on this, piano microphone, but then also, just to change it up, give me one of your standouts from this year.
Okay. And it actually was. I have two things about piano and a microphone. The first one is when we got to go to Celebration. That was actually one of the big features at Celebration this year, was that you got to see his very first show that he did in this piano and a microphone show before he died. And that was amazing. And I can't wait for that to come out on DVD. That was epic, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Definitely. That would have been worth the admission just right there. Going back to the piano and a microphone 1983, though, I actually got quite a bit of flack because my review of this wasn't necessarily all that glowing. And the reason why I wasn't necessarily as blown away by it was more about the context of its release than what it actually was. Because what it was him, focusing and trying to work through some songs, and that part is amazing. But what it was sold to us as was, this is the first posthumous album. This is the thing, right? And it's just but why is this the first one that you guys are getting out here? That didn't make any sense to me. The choice of that, and of course, then there was the Mary Don't You Weep video that came out, which was actually pretty well done. But then, of course, there were tons of reports that the family didn't want this to be the first album, and the family didn't want, that to be for them to spend tons of money on the website and the video and all that stuff. So it's weird because, I was reluctant to, I guess apprehensive maybe about its release. And as amazing as it is for us people who are already Prince friends, I don't think that was the album that's going to bring other people in. And maybe it did, but just in my own, myopic perception of the situation, it seemed like a weird choice.
Okay, interesting.
I think
Go ahead.
Well, I actually got a text from my sister maybe an hour ago, maybe 2 hours ago. She was listening to NPR, and she said, hey, did you know that they did a box set of Prince, something about piano from 1983? I was like, wow, you're just now realizing that it's a thing. But I think it's interesting because, as Prince fans, we do know that he has that talent and things like that. But it's really interesting sometimes to hear people outside of the bubble and knowing what they know about Prince. I think I asked like a group on Facebook, like, hey, I know I talk about bass or Prince all the time, but for those of you who aren't really deep fans, like, what do you know about him? Or did you even know that he played the piano? Did you know all this other stuff? And a lot of people said they didn't know. And it's interesting that people see Prince as kind of like this sexy, like Purple Rain entertainer, but his musicality often gets lost among the people who don't live him every day. And so it is an interesting choice, especially since a lot of us might have had it already. But
Yeah.
and then we always say, you know, when it comes out officially, we got to buy it and to support as well, you know. But and of course, it being Purple Rain adjacent, they're always going to do everything Purple Rain first, because even though it's super annoying to me personally, that does make the numbers. So it was a conflicting thing where I was just like, I guess. But then, like everything else, you'll be annoyed about something Prince does, and then you'll listen to him play, and you're like, oh, I don't care. It's still Prince. I love it.
It's annoying to me too, just for the record. And I'm pretty vocal about it being annoying to me. So yeah, but I completely agree with that. You know, I have a big thing about how everybody's trying to put Prince in this, you know, pretty purple 80s box. And how, like, a lot of the stuff that I do on my YouTube channel is to try to bring out the other things that people don't know. And, you know, so that's it. So yes, it's definitely annoying that they went that route. And if Piano and a Microphone 83, also known as Intimate Moments with Prince, if that was a bonus disc, or if it was the second disc of a new release or something like that, I may have not been as harsh in my review of it, because it really was it was beautiful, and it was really interesting to see him work through those songs. But at the same time, you know, there is context to everything.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you know, I hear what both you're saying. You know, again, we have the lens of looking at it, obviously, with a lot more knowledge of Prince, and we understand his catalog and stuff. But I think that, you know, so I try to think of other artists that have that particular period that always is sort of, you know, the mainstay that mainstream people would view them through. You know, you could look at Stevie Wonder. I would imagine his super fans would be, hey, there's more to him than, you know, the Key of Life, or you know, Sly fans may say there's more to him than, you know, just those hits that he had. There's a whole other thing. And I guess, you know, sometimes you just have to let people get in. I mean, that's just how they get in, you know, the mainstream media's perception of an artist versus those that are very much insiders. And the mainstream is always going to play toward what's going to make them that immediate buck, as opposed to educating people about the deep da-da-da-da. So when I think of it that way, it is always going to make sense why the mainstream media is going to promote, as we say, Purple Rain 80s type of Prince. Obviously, that is how they can make their money. They're not. So, I mean, you know, but again, I think it's really up to people like us, you know, the real fans, to be able to play that other stuff or talk about the other stuff among the community or people that you work with or whatever. And then they'll start to hear, like, who is this? You know, and you get in that conversation and start to explain, yeah, man, this album, Emancipation, or blah, blah, blah. Like, oh, I never heard of this. This is really good. I think that's how they're going to get past, you know, sort of the thing that gets them in the door. You know, some of these more popular mainstay type stuff. But again, I'd rather have them release something than nothing. So I love it. All right. So Piano Microphone. Yeah, that was a big release this year. I was trying to remember. I don't think we knew about this release earlier in the year, did we? Like, I mean, in terms of before April. Was it announced before Aprl?
No, I think April was around when it was announced, and then, you know, it didn't come out till September, so we knew about it months in advance.
Okay. All right. Let's see. I want to go to Kinesis. What was another thing that stood out for you this year?
Only one thing. Okay. A lot happened, but I'm not going to talk about myself. I'm going to talk about the books that came out this year, because there were so many and so many different types, whether it's from people who worked with Prince or like fams who released their own stuff. We had, even though this came out end of last year, but the Prince Pre-Fame book by Robert Whitman, it was very expensive, and it's definitely kind of a collector's item. But it was really cool to see, Prince as an upcoming artist where he wasn't quite famous yet, and all these offshoots of pictures that we've seen before, and like the whole photo reels. It was amazing to flip through, and it didn't seem like it kicked off too much, probably because of the price point. But I don't know, if you had some extra money laying around, maybe $160 extra, maybe an investment that you can pass down or stuff like that. Yeah, but me, like stuff like that, I'm always gonna buy, because I always buy everybody's books or try to read them just to get their perspectives. And then you also had Marco Hart. He put out a book of his art, the 1999 person, which is fun to see. Troy had his volume 3 of Le Petit Prince. There was an interesting book that I saw, because I'm like a geek in normal world, so I'm all about fan fiction for my fandoms that I'm into. And there was actually a book called The Most Beautiful by, I can't even pronounce his name, maybe Michael B, something like that. And at first I picked it up, I was like, oh my gosh, Prince has fan fiction officially now, have to read this, because I'm thinking it's going to be like the Twilight of Prince. And after a while, it was very tongue-in-cheek, like for talking about a male Prince experience. And I'm like, why is Prince so much a part of your world, where you're sitting in a restaurant hearing something from Purple Rain and you're offended because you're like, this is not restaurant music. And I'm like, what am I listening to or reading? But after a while, it started to click, and the references weren't so on the nose, and it really explained how people do connect to Prince, especially when you're younger and you grow up and you attach memories to it, like friendships and relationships, and how Prince soundtracked that for you. And so by the end of it, I was like, wow, that actually turned out to be really cool. So I really appreciate how people are getting creative about how they write about how Prince impacted their lives. And it's not always, like a fantasy journal, or it's really getting artistic in how people are doing that. Have to shout out Hamish for his book, even though it had to fall by the wayside, but that was still a really good collection of things, or Prince's life music. And the way he writes is also very good in that he makes that emotional connection, but it's not like I cry listening to it. It's like when you hear Prince do a guitar solo, there is something that is very visceral about that and how you respond to it. In some moments where he did do that across his career, whether it's early or later, that you can know about in that live work. And really, it's just like a bunch of the books I'm looking through with my list of things. But I really appreciate people talking about their experiences, people being creative and how Prince impacted them, and then seeing pictures of things, or maybe a few that we'd seen before, but so many more hundreds of pictures that are out there to kind of add to that story of Prince.
Yeah, and shout out to Hamish. I'm saying his name right. I know he put a lot of work into that book, and it was really good. Also, I still haven't gotten this book yet. I had it on order at Amazon. They was doing something funny or taking too long, and I had to cancel it. So I'm gonna still get this because I really want to see it. But Before the Rain book.
Mm-hmm. Oh, of course.
And I'm glad we got Princess Friend here, because you had some involvement in that book as well.
Exactly. Yeah, I was gonna mention that book as well. Obviously.
Oh, my bad.
Just because Alan Bolio, who did all of the photography for Prince from Dirty Mind Controversy 1999, those 3 albums, and those tours and all of that stuff all around there, and I have a bunch of the different photo books, and it's really kind of the best, the best one, like not just because I had my little piece of it, but just it's like the most, like it's the most involved. Like there's articles about what it was like to shoot Prince and what it was like to, be in that world. And it's not just pictures. There's stories that go along with those, and it gives you context for the pictures that you're looking at, which is, I think, what really makes that book so well done. And the fact that it was done by the Minnesota Historical Society too, I think, is a big deal.
All right, yeah, definitely. It was. I remember seeing when they first announced it, I was like, oh man, that's like my era. Like I gotta get that. So yeah, I'm very excited to pick that one up. And I've seen, unfortunately, you know, by this point, I know I've probably seen a lot of the pictures online inadvertently, maybe, but I still want to get it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I still want to get that book.
It's cool to have the actual artifact in your hands.
Yeah.
Especially that one. And my little, like, I wrote like 3 pages out of the book. They just wanted me to write up little reviews kind of those eras and those albums. And that's, you know, pretty much was my whole thing. But like, as soon as I actually saw the book, I was just like, wow, this book is really, really good, which is why, I got to go to the launch party, and I did like a bunch of reviews and videos about it, but it's really good.
Right on. All right.
I actually had that book. Well, I was lazy about my Halloween decoration, so I had a table out of different Prince books and decorations, and everybody picked that one up and was like, "What is this?" And what is? So I was like, "Well, you can go to Amazon.com or like be a commercial." But yeah, that was a really and I mean, I've seen a lot of the pictures from that book, but not as many as I thought I would that should be circulated, but not, because, you know, whenever you have these photo books, people want to take pictures and spread them all out. I'm like, pay the people who did this, please. But yeah, I think there's still some gems in there that haven't gotten enough shine yet, so you'll be surprised.
Right. And from what I've heard, he's got even more. So, like, you know, who knows how many more books he might be able to come out with.
All right. It's I mean, obviously there's been 2 other bigger ones, right? Afshin and Steve's. But it's just such an interesting thing that Prince picture books, and they're great. Like, it was just a foresight for him to be always taking pictures and things being documented. And it's great to look back at those. And each one of them are so very different in terms of, you know, what Prince looked like.
Well, you know, I also think that there was when we were at Celebration, there was a panel with Maite, and she kind of gave a little bit of insight into that sort of thing, because Prince was kind of obsessed with photos and, like, you know, making sure that you get the best shots. Like, that was kind of what he was all about. She said that a lot of the choreography would be, all right, you're going to do that over here and whatever, and then we're going to be here and we're going to pose, and it's going to be an amazing shot for people. And that always came into play with all of his shows and all of his albums and anything that he was ever on. So it's like, I'm not surprised that there are books of photos of him, because I think he was so aware of his angles and what he wanted to put out there that it makes each of those really special.
Yeah. And that's one of those things when cats, you know, oh, who's going to be the next, this and that. Yeah, you got to be on the music and all that, but if you ain't thinking on that level as well, then you ain't going to be the next. Like, slow down. You got a ways to go. So, anyway, any other books that of note that we should mention?
One more, the update to the Prince and the Purple Rain era studio sessions by Dwayne Tudall.
Yes.
Got to mention that one as well.
Definitely.
Of course. Shout out to Dwayne. All right.
Hold
on. You got another one.
I'm looking at the Prince pre-fame book now on Amazon, and they want a grip. So if there's another place to get it, let me know.
Yeah, I'll send you a link.
Also, you know, following up on what Kinesis mentioned, book-wise, I've read a lot of biographies of musicians this year, and 2 recently stand out, and they both had a similar mention. The guitar player from the group Toto, Steve Lukather, and I hope I'm probably butchering his name, mentioned that when they were working on one of their albums way back in the early or late 70s at the record plant in Sausalito, Prince was in the studio. And Steve walks in, he's like, who's the little guy? Oh, man, that's the next big thing. Just keep an eye on him. And then Prince went and talked to him and said, yeah, man, I like what you do. You got to change this. And Steve was saying how aware he was of everything around him for being so young. And he didn't know at the time, but that young man grew up to be Prince. And in 1983, same thing. Jonathan Cain from Journey has done his book, and he's talking about how he got a phone call from Warner Brothers right when Purple Rain came out, and they said Prince wants to talk to you. He was like, well, okay. So they sat down over at Warner's in L.A., and Prince said, look, my song is very close to your song faithfully, and I want to make sure that you guys don't think I'm ripping you off. And John's like, no, man, not at all, man. I heard what yours is, and I know what ours is, and no, man, go do your thing. He's all, cool. I just wanted to touch base and show you that respect. And both of those guys were so blown away by that. And it's just another side of him that we don't see. And I like seeing that, and I like people are talking about it.
What are these books, two books that you're mentioning?
The one from Steve Lukather is called The Gospel According to Steve Lukather. It is his biography. And Jonathan Cain's book, I will have to look that up momentarily.
All right.
Because I just read it, and it was a good book.
All right. Well, yeah, let us know before the show's out, because I know some completists gotta have it. So, well, while you're looking that up, I was going to go to you, but I'm going to throw another one out there. It's a sort of an obvious one, but I would love to talk about this. Of course, we had the celebration this year back in April. Actually, it was the first time that weekend or week, whatever, I got to meet Prince's friend. Was that at Bunkers?
It was
no. That was
it was at First Avenue, wasn't it?
No, it was that Jelly Bean Johnson thing. I can't remember what club that.
Oh, that's the Minneapolis Music Cafe.
Okay. Yes. So met you there for the first time. Celebration. We did a whole show about this, but just my quick thing to say. Celebration. I thought I had a great time. Just meeting people. Other Prince fans, of course, going to Paisley Park and seeing all that good stuff. We did our Podcastjuice meet and greet. God, I can't even think of the name. The place was
People's Organic.
People's Organic. Shout out to People's Organic. We did that there, and that was a great time. A lot of people came out. I always, one of the memorable things to me was just sitting in there and was talking, and I just see Ingrid Chavez pulling up outside. I'm like, I'm looking like, who the fuck? Huh? I'm like, oh, it's about to get real in here. But that whole experience was dope. I don't know this, and I'm going to lead into Kinesis a little bit, but I'm curious your takeaway of that weekend, and I'm curious, did that sort of help lead or push you into Muse?
So that was a really long week because I came up for the symposium that started earlier in the week, and it was right when that big snowstorm happened in April. So when I was flying in, my flight didn't get delayed, but a lot of people's did. So there were snow everywhere. I hadn't driven in that kind of snow in forever. I had this rental car. Like, even for Minneapolis, they were kind of surprised by the storm. So the streets weren't really clean, and it was wild. But it was interesting, always seeing the academic side of Prince and how that works. Because, the academic world, they generally have, I'm studying something specific, and then you kind of like get to a symposium like this, and it kind of weaves what they actually study normally into the things that are purple tinted. So it's always interesting. Sometimes it connects, and sometimes it's like, I don't really know if that's a thing. But to kind of see all of people's different opinions and how, they pull things out or make those connections in Prince, and especially the theme of Prince and place, it was like, okay, so I can see how people start to talk about topics that aren't always talked about, as far as, like how they feel about an album, or the main things that people always talk about with Prince, like with the girlfriends and things like that. I'm like, I feel like there's an avenue here to talk about more a combination of how people respond to Prince, as well as digging deeper into the things that people read on the surface. So talked about that. And of course, I'd been on Prince podcast before, and people were like, oh, you should do your own. And I was always like, I don't really know, because I'm weird about my voice. And then it's a job, right? You got to work it like a job, right? So just meeting people, and people were like, hey, you're Darling Nisi. And it's the strangest thing still to me now. People will hear my voice and be like, your voice is familiar, or they'll have seen my picture or follow me on Tumblr or Twitter. So, And then we come into Celebration, where again, the People's Organic event was very interesting because there was so much happening while we were there. All the websites were launched. The news from the investigation happened. So it was the video came out, and I remember everybody being on their phones there and people crowding around phones and listening to different things. And it was like, this is overwhelming and also hilarious because look at these Prince nerds in this regular restaurant that's doing business right now. And then all these people coming in, Scotty Baldwin came in, like people were there who knew him. It was just like this weird bubble of, even though, we were all up there for a kind of sad reason, it was still kind of like this bubble of protection from like the negativity, even with that happening there. Where we saw the press conference, we set it aside and we're like, we are here to celebrate this man and spend this time with people who get it and made it, invested to be here and things like that. So that had a big impact on me as well, because again, it's the people. And so then we're at Celebration and things happen as Celebration happens. And it was a little different from the first year where it was way less emotional, because the first year everybody's like 2 seconds from crying and things like that. And it to me, it seemed a little less personal, just because last time, or the first year, you started every day with Prince and then you went into the panels, and sometimes you would go a whole day, or for my VIP, sometimes you went a whole day without seeing him on the big screen. So it was kind of like, I don't feel like that's the point. So hopefully they'll do better with this next time. But it was still, again, we're learning about Prince. We're learning about things that are always talked about. And so after all of that, I think Aunt Pooh called me in the middle of the day, like I don't have a job, and was like, hey, can I talk to you about something? I was like, is it an emergency? Like, why are you calling? But he was like, hey, me and Michael were talking. What do you think about doing your own podcast? And I was like, you know what? Before I would have said no, but now I kind of want to. And then I have my Tumblr crew that we've been talking about Prince every day, and we'll argue or make different things about Prince. And I was like, I think we should bring that format to a podcast. So let's talk about how Prince impacted our lives since he passed. Let's talk about the 90s. Let's talk about live moments after 2000. Let's talk about things that aren't in the 80s that people always talk about. Let's talk to women who worked at First Avenue while he was coming up, to hear the story of before Purple Rain. Like, what was it like to have Prince come in and do like a Controversy or Dirty Mindset or things in the 7th Avenue entry area? Or let's talk about the Black experience for women who were there from the beginning and what it was like to see him kind of become more pop and see him embraced by everyone else and the trajectory of his career. It's like, or even let's talk to a woman who worked for WB before the Purple Rain time and during Purple Rain time, a little bit after. So it's kind of like, these are voices that don't often get elevated, and they should be heard from as well, because it's part of the story. And then also talking to how people connect to Prince personally, because there's some value in talking about that from a healing perspective, as well as really digging into why we even connect to him in the way we do. So some of them are challenging, and some of them were things that, as our group, we talk about, or at least my Muse group, we talk about personal things like, why am I crying at certain songs and things like that, and really digging into the why of it, that I feel like does bring healing both in the loss of Prince, but as well as internally. So that's kind of how I moved, this was really long, moved into the space of creating Muse, that there's a story behind being interested in Prince. There's a reason why we're all so obsessed with him. And there's interesting things to know about him, to where we can sometimes apply it to ourselves, and sometimes it's just interesting to know about how humans work.
All right. Let me be on record for those who don't, if I ain't made it clear enough, I am like so happy and like proud and like just like, look at, Kinesis Pharaoh and everything that you're doing. It is exceptional work. And so for me, I just sit back and be like, shine. It's time to shine. You know what I'm saying? And do your thing. And like, there is so much to add to, Prince. Of course, there's Prince, the person, and everything that he was, but there's also the reflection back on Prince from us, as admirers of him, people who are inspired. There's people who work for him. But I think for what you speak to specifically, Kinesis, it's a great thing. Like, it's just so good. And again, all of these voices are like crucial to like get just a super understanding. So whatever level, that you might be listening to this podcast or you hear about Prince, there are different stages and things that you can get into, right? Once you get into that music, then there's that conversation of everything that Kinesis brought in, this conversations that Prince's friend does, and all the other, shows out there. But specifically Muse, like, I'm just so happy that it's going down. And the other thing I will say too, I'm so happy of the work ethic. Everyone who knows me knows I'm all about, putting it in and let's get it, blah, blah, blah. So to me, it's like, that's an example of working it like a job of somebody who just took it by it's like, oh, you give me the baton, Mike, and you give me I'm gone, and Kinesis gone with it. I'm just like, okay, yeah. And, the great thing about it is it keeps me hungry. It keeps, it's like, okay, sis ain't playing. She's not playing. And, I'm able to see, some of the behind the scene thing, the scheduling and gathering the team, all this types of things. And it's beautiful. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just letting you know that I really appreciate what you're doing. I really love it. And again, I was going to go somewhere with it, and it's kind of, I was going to say this. This is the great thing about this Prince thing too, and having points of reference is what I quickly want to say. Prince gave us a point of reference of greatness. Like, if you're a musician, for any musician, no matter what your style you into, if you're a real musician, you can see Prince as a point of reference of, that dude is upper echelon. Like, I want to aspire to be as good as that cat is on instruments, right? That's a thing. But to me, just as a fan of it and a lover of music and of people, I can hold him as a point of reference to say, my guy here, he put in so much work, and he was able to create an opportunity in a space where he brought other people in, right? And said, okay, well, like, for instance, Dave Hampton, I need you to do this for me. And I need you to be at the top of your game. Jackie, I need you to be at this. Scotty, I need you to do this. Lang, I need you to do this. And everyone sort of has the same vision, but they all put in a position where they can be great and they can be inspired, and they go on to do other stuff too. But I can look at it as a point of reference and say, man, look how my man ran his situation. You know what I'm saying? He came in and was like, I'm going 100%, 150% every day, from my clothes, my hair. We don't care. All of it's going to be on some other level stuff, and I'm going to just do me. I'm not really worried about what nobody got to say. And everybody around me is going to be on that same, is going to be on that same level. So inspiring others around you to rise up and be just as great, because it ain't just about one person. So I'm saying, why am I saying all this to say? Because, what Kinesis is doing, Prince's friend is doing, Peach and Black is doing, my guy, Violet Reality, Purple Underground, everybody's got a point of reference, right? We all into Prince and into, we want to be the best at what we do and contribute. And it's just great that we all are pushing this thing forward, and everybody is sort of can be a point of reference. My man, Prince's friend, can be a point of reference to me. Like, I want to get in on that YouTube game. Let me peep game. Let me watch what he's doing. You know what I'm saying? Or I want to do a podcast. Let me see or Dwayne, he writing about. Let me peep how he did that, or whatever. So I love that we can all shine and do our things, because we're all points of reference for each other. And I'm going to get off my soapbox, but I just wanted to give it up to my sister Kinesis.
Can I just add to that?
Go ahead.
I think that's super interesting what you said as far as Prince, saying, hey, you should do this, you should do this. And he's kind of still doing that to all of us.
Yep. Yeah.
Because, everybody is doing a little bit more than they're comfortable doing right now. Because I know I was not about to have a podcast and let me do it for Prince. Let me try to grow into this. And then when I got more confident in my voice, through Prince, I got like took off at work. I'm getting like all types of responsibilities now because now I'm more confident. And then same for all of us. Like me and Prince's friend were on Purple Current.
Yep.
And they were both like, when we were both on there, they're like, we really appreciate what you're doing to elevate the legacy. And how I got my opportunity to do the PRN alumni thing, where I got to moderate a panel. I'm like, because you put yourself out there, and then I didn't ask to do that. I got a call out of the blue. I was like, what? It's interesting who's paying attention to what you're doing and how you're presenting yourself. And then also having just to step into it and just to try it out and then to iterate and get better. And you people writing you long letters, like what you said really impacted me. And it's really interesting because these are all things that we wouldn't have done maybe before while he was here. But when we're sad and trying to deal with it ourselves and trying to step into the way he inspired us to push, great things happen too.
Yeah. Most definitely. Yeah. Most definitely. And it's everything Kinesis just said pretty much is true. The Purple Current was a weird one for me because that one really came out of the blue. But when I started doing my YouTube channel, it's been growing and it's been amazing. But it's weird because then you realize who is watching, or in your guys' case, who is listening. Because I've been contacted. I got contacted and invited out to Paisley, where I got to hang out with Wally Safford and go to an amazing DJ set of Prince music at Paisley. And I got invited to work on the Prince Before the Rain book. There's just been so many things, and I've just talked to so many people who are like, because you're doing what you're doing, it's one, helping me cope with the loss. Which is always something that, I appreciate because I started doing what I was doing because Prince wasn't here anymore and I didn't have an outlet to mourn myself. And, so many people have kind of, glopped onto me, and they're like, we can kind of experience everything from me, which is really cool. And I actually like the fact that my channel has kind of transitioned from pure mourning to also trying to become a little bit more introspective and whatnot. Like we did the, we're talking about big topics like Prince and the internet, Prince and race, these big issues. And we're trying to tackle them, with a little bit of humor and a little bit of, introspectiveness and just a little bit of fun. But at the same time, these are big things. And I would have never done that before, because it was weird because we had Prince. Like Prince was here. So anytime I needed Prince, I'd be like, cool, let me throw some Prince on. Hey, Prince is there. I can throw on the next thing. I was always waiting for the next, album, the next interview, the next show, whatever I could watch. I was content with just what was there. Mm. And then there was this giant hole, and I think everybody right now is kind of rushing to try and fill that hole. But he was such a big thing that I think it requires all of these different voices and all of these different angles and all of these people to fill that, super large epic sized hole.
Yes. And I want to have this conversation too, because it's good that we're all here. And I know we've had this conversation off the air, and I want to have a sort of a more, I don't know how to say it. Well, we can have this conversation up front now because we've talked about it on the side. But everything we've all just said, right? All of us contributing to this, and as you say, people will say, "Well, you helped move the legacy and keeping it alive." Mm-hmm. The real thing now, I think, where a lot of us are starting to really come into now, once you realize, the words you speak have power, right? And a lot of us can get into these authoritative positions, even if that's not necessarily what we expected or was trying to do, but because of the way, society is with, media and, the power of our voice. This one thing Prince very much understood was the things that he said mattered. So and that's why you always saw he was very particular. No matter who he was talking to, he was never just talking nilly-nally. Like, he always had an agenda, or there was something he was trying to get across, but he wasn't just talking out his ass. And that's something I always appreciated about Prince, because he had a mission, and he was, he knew the things he would say this way. So that was one way you never really got to see him talk crazy about somebody out in public, which I always thought was dope, even if he could have. Mm-hmm. But I say all this to say is now, 6 months, a year, 2 years, whatever it is, that all of us are getting into. Now, I think the thing we have to also be very cognizant of is the responsibility, right? That of what we say and what we put out, because now we're in a position to be, I don't know, people are looking to us, and some of the things that we say, they gonna say, "Oh, my man said it," or "Old girl said it," or "This, I heard this on here." It's the same way when we used to read books, and I read it in Pierre Nelson's book. It said this, or I read, and we took that as damn near gospel. Now that we are sort of getting in these positions, we got to be. That's what we really got to make sure that we understand the power of what we put out there, good or bad. Like, we just know that the stuff we're doing it ain't just us listening. as you said, right? There's so many people that are listening, and we're contributing to this ecosystem of Prince.
And that takes time to adjust to as well. Like, I'm still in that adjustment, because to me, like, that's the thing about, I guess, I'm reluctant to say the word fame. I don't consider myself famous at all. But, notoriety, I'll say then. But I mean, the moment that, you become a little bit, known, you become a known entity, your words start to take on more weight, even if you haven't changed. And that's actually a big thing that I've been experiencing this tail end of this year, is I've seen that the way that people are seeing me is different than it was when I first started my YouTube channel. Even though I am the same dude, I'm still doing a lot of I do the same stuff that I've been doing since I started. So nothing's changed on my end, but it's what you said, like that societal thing. It's the perception of you, because you're kind of in everybody's, atmosphere, and everybody, it's like, even if you're not looking for, the, Podcastjuice, you're gonna end up running into it eventually, or somebody else will be talking about it. You'll be like, "What's that thing?" And that's kind of where we're at right now. Is I'm going through a lot of transitions personally on that front. So I don't know. Are you guys still doing that as well?
Yeah, that was my reluctance to want to do a podcast in the first place, because the fandom can be very harsh. If you
can they? Wait a minute. Are you sure?
You do a whole show on that.
Like, especially if you're a female person in the fandom, because they're majority females, and they tend to latch onto the male voices more than the female ones, interestingly. But I think that's one thing that I'm very careful about, that whenever I'm saying something, that I have 3 sources from where I got the information from, or to kind of like, especially when drama goes down in the purple world, to kind of give a perspective of zoom out, especially because it's really interesting. Because something will happen in the purple world, everybody's very upset about it, pitchforks, and it feels very personal because people are still hurting. So when you don't have, like, Prince would do things out of the blue. He wouldn't tell us anything either, but Prince is able to do that because he's Prince. If his estate does that the same way, to some people are like, yeah, this is part of the course. Like, the websites are always going to be iffy, and it's going to be bootleg with merch. You might get it, you might not. So that's pretty consistent. But we put up with it because it was Prince, and because we're hurting, and he's not here, and it's still kind of being run in a similar way. You don't have that extra kind of cushion there to make those kind of mistakes. So, I mean, like, when something happens, I'm kind of like, yeah, I mean, probably. And I don't really like to get involved in the drama, just because it's like, I understand it from a wider perspective because it happens like with politics and it happens with, it's just the way the world works. But everything is just more personal because it's Prince. But I know for me, as far as, being a voice or whatever, again, I don't feel like I'm an authority on anything. I just have a lot of free time and I read a lot and can use Google very well. So, or I listen to a lot of stuff. So you start to notice patterns when you hear music on and off the record across years. So it's just kind of like, though, it's an interesting place to be in as a female voice, because I'm obviously not the first female person who's ever talked about Prince, but noticing how people respond to them, and then just kind of walking the line of not trying to incite anyone, but to make sure that what I'm saying it brings logic to a situation to kind of take the emotion out of it, even though it's very difficult to do with Prince. It's just like zoom out for a little bit and think about why you're upset. And I think we even talked about this on our last podcast about fams and fanatics. It's just like there's a reason why you're upset. At the end of the day, it's probably not actually about Prince, but just be aware of that as you're consuming all the clickbait type articles, what spins everyone up. They have an agenda too, and it's not about Prince. It's about, money and clicks. So,
It's interesting too, because what I'll do is I get a lot of flack because I talk about both sides of that. I try to see everything from every angle. I'm definitely not a Prince sycophant. Prince did everything, correct, and there's nothing ever wrong with anything that he's ever done. Like, I'll discuss something and I'll say, hey, that wasn't that cool that he had done that thing. And then the comments will blow up on my videos because they'll be like, how dare you say such a thing? And this person said that and blah, blah, blah. And a lot of the time I'll go and I'll comment back and I'll say, well, this is why I said that thing. Can you give me more idea about what your point of view of that? And sometimes, it starts a big fight and whatever, and then I just disengage. But other times they go, you know what? I wasn't even mad about what you really said yesterday. It was just this other thing that was happening in my life. Mm-hmm. So that's also part of this kind of sphere that we're in right now is just, you become like that thing. Like, I don't like Prince's Friend. So now Prince's Friend is not just that channel I'm not going to go watch. He becomes the enemy. It's like it can become that for anybody. I actually reposted the thing that you posted up, Kinesis, the thing about, when you're mad about something, you're not even really mad about that thing. You're kind of in your own feelings about your fandom. And I had some people who were like, wow, that's really introspective and objective. And it's really cool to think about it that way. And then I had other people who were the opposite, is all I'll say. So, but I, that's the way that I approach, almost anything. Like, I loved Prince and I loved his music and everything. But there are fams and friends and whatever. And then there's those people who are just sycophants and they almost worship, this guy who never asked to be worshipped.
Yeah. I don't know. I have, my thing is, all the comments and stuff. I love it. Secretly, I love it. There's a part of me that I'm like, the younger Michael was so petty. Like, I would have just drowned myself and going back and forth. But as I gotten older, I just be like, I can't even, I don't have the time essentially, but I just think that it's cool that, again, because I feel like the words have power, the fact that people can take the time out of their day to, one, listen to us or watch what we do is a blessing. The comments and stuff after that, like if they still have time to do that, to me, it's a blessing, whether there's shade, praise or not, because again, the worst thing I would say, they don't know who the hell, they're not listening and paying attention at all. So to me, it like takes a certain type of energy to actually type out what you want to say to somebody, not necessarily knowing they're going to even actually be able to see it. So I just look at it as part of the game. The internet culture, moving away from just Prince, whatever fandom you're into, they have that for everybody. Other things that I'm into, and they get just as crazy. Again, you can either engage in that or not. But I just think I would just say for us, the people that are actually, you know, creating something, I always say just be focused on the next thing you got to create or contribute. You know what I'm saying? Like trying to win the hearts and minds of the masses is a battle that a lot of us ain't got time for, and they'll drain your energy down, man. Like, imagine if Prince would just spend all his, because again, Prince fans went hard at Prince when he was alive. Let's be very clear. Mm-hmm. You go on Prince.org back in the day, tear his shreds in the comments. You know, it was so much hate going on. But you think he has enough time in the day to be sitting there going through all that and then still doing all the work he did? Now, I'm not saying he didn't jump in there, but there's no way you're going to be Prince and creating all this work if you got time reading everybody's opinion on everything you said, right? There's no way you could do that. So for me, I just say, this is why I just say this. Hold that comment. Come to Celebration. When you see me on the street, pull up and then say it. And I'll see if you say it to me, then I'll be like, you know, okay. But otherwise, you know, I just charge it to the game. I say charge it to the game, man. We ain't got time for that. But I want to move forward a little bit.
We probably should.
Yeah. But this is good game for those who are thinking about, you know, want to create something. You should, because all voices, I think everyone has a unique perspective on something, and we're here for it. I know I want to read it or I want to hear it. You know what I'm saying? But again, know what comes with that. That's all I'm saying.
Oh yeah, I'm all about it. Anytime I find like a new YouTube channel or podcast or whatever, I'm all about sharing it and trying to, you know, and I'll be like, hey, do you want to come on my channel? I'll help you, you know, get some support on your channel. Just come on and we can talk about it. You know, like that's because, you know, it can't just be us, you know. There's a whole lot of different perspectives out there that we want to hear them all.
And with that said, real quick, because I want to make sure we do that. Let's shout out some of the other voices out there that just don't be clear. I want to give everybody as much props as we can quickly. Prince's friend. I know there are other YouTube channels. I know you must be aware. You got to be aware of some other ones. What are some ones that we should be checking out? The fans should be checking out.
There's the Nightchild. Nightchild Reviews. Yeah. He's amazing. Like, he still does some really great videos, and he kind of talks to the community, and he's got really good, like, one thing he did was he actually created a survey and had, like, you know, hundreds of people fill it out and sent it to the estate and said, this is what people are saying, dude. Like, you know, look at us like we're allies and not like we're the enemy, and because we could work together, and here's what people want. So I mean, that's it. I love his channel. I'm always all over his channel. But I mean, I just also brought up this other guy, and I'm trying to remember his name. You know, I'll go with that one. But there's, you know, Mr. Ant's World of Prince is really, really good.
Yes, I've seen that name out there.
Yeah, so his is really good. The Violet Reality is really good, and they're actually just now coming back. They were kind of away for a while, but they're now coming back, and, you know, they're doing some great stuff.
Real quick, let me
ahead.
cut you in. Just want to give, again, we're going to take a second to do this. Whether this will be on the podcast, I may edit this for YouTube slightly, but I want to personally give a shout out real quick to my guy, Casey Rain. Keep doing your work, homeboy. I'm watching. Oh, yeah, keep doing your thing. Keep the fire going. That's all I want to say. He understands that. Go ahead.
Casey Rain and Ken Camellia. They're also
and Kim. Yep.
They're also really cool. And then the last one I was going to say was the Purple Underground. Yeah. You know, Purple Underground's been, you know, really, really cool. And they've been pumping out a lot of stuff lately. So I'm hoping that ends up getting them a lot of, you know, really good props on YouTube. You know, and the thing about all of these channels is that they've been around forever. And they were actually around before I was ever around. So, like, I have actually learned quite a bit from watching them, kind of like what you were saying earlier, Mike, is, you know, I'm like, that seems like something I could do. Let me try and do that. And it's really cool to kind of now be in, you know, that same community there of, you know, there's not that many of us doing YouTube channels, you know, around Prince. There's less than 10, you know, right, so.
All right. And there's other podcasts as well. I apologize. I don't have the names in front of me. Kinesis, I know you was on one not too long ago.
Yeah. the dystopian dance, PrinceSongs.org,
Yes.
that has we do some reviews of albums that go several hours long. So we've done one for you for the 40th, and we did one for Prince as well. It's me, Zach, and Harold Pride. So it's just kind of us sitting around being super duper nerds about Prince, to where we're going through musical influences, going through specific shows. As far as, live music, it's talking about studio work, who the musicians were, and it's really like super. It's not so much a review as it is kind of like a scholarly thought of how Prince made these albums and where the influences came from and all the different parts to it. So those are pretty deep. And then I also want to shout out Mountains in the Sea. They're kind of a review podcast, but they're kind of going through different albums as well.
Okay.
I been listened to a couple of them. I super want to shout out their Bria Valente Elixir show, because everybody has things to say about that. But I enjoy that album, so shout out to them.
There's one. It's like a track by track or something. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, it's like Prince track by track, where they're like 15, 20 minutes long, and they'll have guests on to talk about songs from the different albums. They're pretty far up in the catalog too.
That's
They're definitely
dope.
in the few
That's
albums.
dope.
Yeah.
I like that. And also shout out to my sister. She came to the meet and greet and blessed me. Her family was with her. D'Angela Duff, excuse me. I'm all over. I'm reading other stuff, but the Grown Folks Music Prince podcast, man, shout out to y'all. Y'all be putting it in the work. I love what y'all do. Keep it going. That's all I can say. Keep it going.
They just did a Madhouse
Yes.
review. That was very good.
Yeah, shout out to all those involved in that. All right, let's get off of the patting of our backs and get back to some more stuff. The other thing, there was many things, but quickly, the Prince Estate. Mm-hmm. The Prince Estate in 2018 was busy. It was very busy this year. On a personal, just to go back on a personal level, we had to even change our name this year, right, Big Sexy?
Yeah, we had a little breaking bread meeting with them. It was cool.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, but they were busy this year. There was many things in the news. Some of the bigger ones, they had the lawsuit with I Records, which is a Prince bootleg, I guess, label from overseas. I think we did a show about that. I know people talked about that in the community. Now, ain't this about it? Now, didn't they just put something out?
Yeah.
Okay.
I ain't got nothing to do with it.
Shout out to iRecords, I guess. But yeah, I mean, so you have that, and we've talked about that ad nauseum. But there's also the lawsuit that they had. There was a guy out of Oklahoma. He put up the Vanity 6 album on TuneCore, which I think probably got it on a lot of the streaming services. And the state, want to take that down. I think this gentleman, his name is Phil, actually pushed back and got it reinstated on there. Obviously, he has nothing to do with the creation of the Vanity 6 album, but there was, there's that thing going on out there. There was a lawsuit pending about the domain name of Prince.com that the estate was trying to get back. If you remember that, I think that was earlier this year. I'm not sure what happened with that. I know a lot of fans and admirers of Prince got cease and desist letters this year, right?
Not me, but
Luckily, not me.
but I'm totally joking. Totally did, but
Oh, no.
I don't know if that's a badge of honor or what, but I mean, they were busy this year. And again, some of it, a lot of it can make sense, I guess, from their perspective, right? If you're trying to protect something. But on the other side, a lot of us sometimes scratch our head or, we didn't have intentions of trying to take something. Some of them maybe did, but they was on their game this year. That's all.
Well,
that
you
was
forgot too.
I probably did. Go ahead.
The guy who makes who designed Prince's cloud guitar has been making replicas forever. They're trying to get him trying to make it so that he can't make any more cloud guitars to sell. And they also finished up there was at least a ruling on the Ian Boxall and Deliverance this year as well. And they are ordering him to pay the estate $4 million for trying to release Deliverance last year.
Wow. I don't even know why people would be surprised by that one. I remember when we talked about it initially, I said up front, he's going to lose.
Oh, yeah.
And he lost badly.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as the cloud guy, my understanding is he owns he owns that copyright and trademark. Mm-hmm. So if it's his, that's it. Now the estate may want to get it from him, that's fine. Then they need to sit down with him, work something out like an exclusive licensing arrangement or something, but if they're going to try to drag him into federal court and make him just give it up, they will lose.
Wasn't there also, they're trying to license or do something for the color purple, like that your company has for red? Yeah.
Well, that was but that's they were trying to trademark the color, the color, but as a phrase, like the purple one or the purple somebody, the purple singer or whatever. They wanted it to not only be associated with him, which it's weird, but, I mean, I guess you can. If they can, I guess they will.
Yeah. I mean, hey man, we were actually behind the scenes trying to get my guy to come on the show. So we'll see what happens with that. I don't know if that's off the table, but that was having a $4 million tag on you, boy. That's when I'm a pro when they. Hello. I speak to Michael Dean. Is him? Hey, this is from such and such financial. We're trying to get. Hold on for a minute. That's one thing to do for them type of cats, but they had that $4 million one. Boy, I don't know, man. That's woo.
Yeah,
that's tough. But yes, the estate was busy on that type of stuff this year. And I'm just kind of throwing things out there. One of the bigger ones, I know we had talked about it, just to bring it back up again, was the Super Bowl earlier this year with Justin Timberlake and all of that stuff. That was a brouhaha at the time. Whatever happened? I seem like I never heard from Justin after that. Like, he had put out an album and stuff too.
He did.
Oh, he had that party at Paisley Park as well.
Yeah, he did the party. Right. He did the release party there and everything. Right.
Yeah.
Or the listening party. Now, what's you know how they say, like, if you really want to know what's going on, you ask the help, you ask the people who work there. Mm-hmm. So when I was at Paisley, I got to hear some interesting stories about, that listening party and how, they didn't actually respect the facilities and like stuff like that. And I was like, wow, like that was surprising. Like, if you're going to do, like, you would imagine that you're doing it there because of the respect and, how much you care about that place. But it was very, very, the stories I heard, and I probably shouldn't repeat all of them, but the stories that I heard were just like, wow, like it made me lose some respect for, Justin Timberlake. So it was interesting.
Man, you're going to drop that in there, but you ain't going to get into no tea?
I could tell y'all, but it probably shouldn't be recorded.
Them type of cats. All right. Also, I mean, again, and I'm just dropping things, the Blackish episode.
Yay.
Dude.
It was a highlight this year, right?
That was my jam.
Yeah, and I especially liked all of the marketing they did around that, and they did it so well. Like, from some of the pictures that they had where they recreated Prince album covers to making sure that there were playlists that were available for people to listen to on the popular streaming services. They were those videos were up immediately after the episode aired on YouTube, even though it hadn't aired on the West Coast. And just like, it was just brilliant marketing around all of that, and they handled that with such care. They did an excellent job.
And the episode itself was really good, because it's a comedy show, so you always fear that, they're going to, poke fun at Prince or whatever, but Prince was never the punchline. They made jokes around the experience of being a Prince friend and everything, but like they never said like, oh, and he's dumb or whatever. I thought that was really the best thing. Like, I think it's definitely the best, TV tribute that we've seen so far. There hasn't been a ton of them, but it's definitely the best one so far, because I think it also spoke to a certain, type of parent. Because guess what? Like, the framing of the episode is he finds out his kid doesn't know anything about Prince, so they sit him down to talk to his kids about Prince and educate him. I've had that family meeting. I've had it twice. So, and I plan on having it a third time probably. So like I related immediately to the episode because, I've had that same experience.
All right. Listen, I'm going to do something we don't normally do here. We're going to take a quick break. We'll regroup, come back. So hold tight. Thank you for listening to the podcast. Check us out at podcastjuice.net. If you're on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button so you can be notified of the newest episodes. And be sure to check out the website for our official podcast on Prince and Work It Like a Job t-shirts.
She was a problem. All of my friends wanted to meet her. Even my man's girlfriend was jocking. Never leave her alone. Had to cross that broad out on the telephone. She was a problem. Yeah, she was fine. She was a problem. Was so far mine. She was a problem. What could I do? She was a problem. Baby girl was the truth. She was a problem. Back in the day, she was a problem. Never had much to say. Spending all my time now. Wonder how does she feel? The only thing about it, don't even know if it's real. She was a problem. Yeah, she was fine. She was a problem. Was so far mine. She was a problem. What could I do? She was a problem. Baby girl was the truth. She's the kind of girl that you all wanna find. Beautiful heart and a beautiful mind. Gotta keep my focus opportunity. Love should be fit for possibility. Yeah. She was a problem. Yeah, she was fine. She was a problem. Was so far mine. She was a problem.
Oh, is it like that?
She was a problem. Yeah, she was fine. She was a problem. Was so far mine. She was a problem. What could I do? She was a problem. Baby girl was the truth.
On the one.
She was a problem.
What's up? You think you're bad, don't you? Come on. Check it.
She was a problem. Yeah, she was fine. She was a problem. Was so far mine. She was a problem. What could I do? 'Cause she was a problem.